want to welcome everyone to the 2019 opening meeting of the Subcommittee on Public Safety for our full Committee of Appropriations. My name is Andy Welch. I'm the chairman of the committee, and I am honored to have the guests that are here today and members of the public that may be joining us as well. We have a number of items to go through, but we have some preliminary matters we have to take care of initially in terms of the committee. Representative Belton, Representative Bruce, I should say Chairman Belton, Representative Clark, and Chairman Lunston. Could y'all step out for just a minute, Mr. Kirk, Dan Kirk? Dan Kirk needs to see you for just a minute if he could, with the GBI, if you could, just for a minute. And while that's going on, Roger, yes, so if you step right out there with Mr. Kirk, he's in the back room there. You have his card. He needs to see you for just a minute. Well, the chairman from Liberty County, would you like to join them? No, somebody got to send the gift back. Oh. Bill, come on in.
No, I'm right here. Okay. Sit with Al. Nah, I'm good.
So, just as a way of introduction while we're waiting, this is a very important subcommittee on appropriations. Individuals that have been selected to serve here have some background, skills, and interest in public safety and the criminal justice system. Obviously, we, as a committee, we oversee the budgets of some of the largest departments in the state, and the most, in the sense that we have the Department of Corrections, we have the GBI, the entire judiciary. So we have all these numbers of agencies that we're overseeing in terms of their budget as in state government. It is a large budget, over $2 billion, actually close to $4 billion. And so our role here is to listen to the testimony and make some decisions. We've got 4 new members that we are that Mr. Kirk is talking to outside, and I think when he gets through with his discussions with them, we'll bring them back in. All right. Well, just tell the former state patrol that he's got to step out. So we just like to make sure that all our new members are cleared before they come in. I appreciate GBI and Mr. Deputy Clerk for.
I think I'll leave before we get to the old member background check.
Yeah, that's right. Fortunately, some of us are grandfathered in. So what I would like to do is just go over our agenda today. For the new members, Mr. Belton, Mr. Lunston, Mr. Bruce, and where'd Mr. Clark go? Oh, I guess he got escorted out. Okay, well, all right, there we go. That was the one. All right, so, gentlemen, so I was saying while you were humoring me in the hallway, was that there is our committee has to oversee about $4 billion of the state budget. We have an extensive responsibility for all the public safety networks of the state, including the third branch of government, the judiciary. So we'll be overseeing all of this, the monies that are appropriated. It is our job to vet the governor's budget and to determine are the allocations appropriate, and to make policy decisions within this subcommittee that are reflective of the committee's will as to what we believe to be in the best interest of the state, the citizens of the state. So we have a high charge here. This is the only constitutional, this is the only legislation that constitutionally we are required as the General Assembly to pass. So this is our singular most important responsibility, and I hope that you will take it as seriously as I do. In fact, probably more seriously. So we will, Courtney has been our research assistant for a number of years now. She's exceptional. She has a very good relationship with the agencies. She is very good at scrutinizing data, and she is here to answer your questions if I cannot answer them myself. So please feel free to call on her. She is exceptional. She is a member of the state bar. So she has a law degree and has those skills associated with it, which includes defensive argument, jujitsu in the courtroom, if you will. So be prepared to make your case, state the facts, and defend yourself if she comes back at you about questioning you on why you want to know. But seriously, feel free to use her because she's exceptional in her research, and she will be prompt in her responses. Brian Groom is also assists the committee, but he does so on the judiciary side. So if you have questions about the judicial branch of government, you will direct your questions to him for additional research and work if you have questions beyond what I can answer. This committee is made up of individuals that have a background and history in public safety and or the area of law, and so we have a very strong committee and people that have that interest. So this group, you all have talents, skills, and experiences that I'm asking you to lend to the committee, to share with the committee. And I expect you to participate in the meetings. We do start punctual. We are on time. I do keep track of those who do not attend. So I expect you to be here. And I expect you to come prepared with questions as we go through the budget. Now, this is the amended budget that we're talking about today. So for purposes of our meeting today, we will be focusing on the amended 19 budget. There are not a lot of changes in this budget today, so we are going to hit on those that have been requested for us to review. And with that, again, we'll send out messages. I will probably send you text messages as well, so we'll use your cell phone numbers to send a group text to let people know if there's a change in the meeting or to remind you of a meeting and the location. So it's important that we do have your cell phone number so I can send those texts to you, or Courtney can do as well. Any questions from the members of the committee? Except for the new people. I don't want to hear from you. New to this committee. You've got many years on me.
Right now,
Go ahead.
as you know from serving together on the Judiciary Committee, you know I'm going to ask questions. But
Yes, sir. I expect it.
but here, you know, I listened to your charge and I listened to what you said, and it makes me feel pretty proud to be here. But there was one question. You said that we're just going to be looking at the governor's requests for funding. Does this committee at all get involved in requests that come from local governments at all?
No, sir. What we will have happen, though, is we will have your constituents may have requests. So your constituents may have issues, whether they have a county-run prison system that's joint with the state. There may be those issues. You may have a prison system in your district. You may have other aspects of our public safety, a trooper station, et cetera. So there may be things that are tied back to your district that are local, but they're not local government requests. So we will be looking at those. But as for local government requests, no, we won't be dealing with those issues here.
Okay.
It's a good question, and I'm glad you asked. Mike.
Chairman, also includes our behavior.
Let's see Mr. Bruce's experience. He's got his mic on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we do. We do allocate for the court systems all the way down to your drug court. So that is part of our charge. That's a good point, Mike. Thank you. Other questions? Now, I know Mr. Belton has questions. So if we now I'll say we used to have a judge on this committee. And he always had at least one question, and I'm expecting that Mr. Bruce will take over his role and a good question. Well, there's always our chairman from Liberty County. Well, let me just say one more time that I am really impressed with the group the speaker has assembled and the committee on assignments has assembled to be here. This is an outstanding team. and I know that we're going to do exceptional work in terms of reviewing the budget. But back to Representative Bruce's question, when we are looking at the budget, you can look beyond just what's submitted by the governor. So it's not, we have track changes to look at, but we always dig beyond that. This committee is somewhat notorious for digging beyond just what the governor submits. Al will be the first to tell you that. So, so don't look when you have the papers and you have the track sheets that are in front of you. This is for the amended right now, which is pretty much set by our previous adoption of the appropriations bill last year. So this is just some minor tweaks at the end of the session, or beginning of this session, but for the end of the last fiscal year. When we get into the big budget, that's where I'm very open to scrutiny up to the big budget and any items that you want to look beyond that. Yeah, it's a good point. You can yes. Why don't you recognize your judge? Judge, thank you for being here. Certainly a pleasure. We will Mandy, Chairman Bowser has presented a question or a statement that she'd like to make, and that is that when we're doing the judiciary's budget, they, as the third branch of government, set their own needs, and the governor's office, OPB, does not alter those numbers. So what we're getting are the true exact numbers submitted to us. That may not be true with all of the executive agencies. So within the executive branch, those requests may have been filtered and narrowed and tailored to the budget within the confines of what can be expended and the revenue projections. So that's a good point. Thank you. Any other points? And okay, good. Well, I appreciate you tolerating the opening ceremony, if you will, of this. And Dan, thank you very much for your assistance. If we could, we'll go ahead and start with Scott Dutton, our interim director of the GBI, Connie Buck, our chief financial officer, and Dan clearly has your back. So. Mr. Interim Director, thank you for being here today. Ms. Buck, always good to see you as well. Thank you both for all the hard work that you do and what your agency is doing across the state of Georgia. Please go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being here, Chairman, and members of the committee. Our list is actually relatively short as it relates to the amended FY19 budget. If you go through the tracking sheet to 30.4.2, it provides for funds for equipment and 15 vehicles to bring the cyber center up to full staffing. This is equipment cost. Last fiscal year, or FY19, we were awarded 8 positions to include supervisors, agents, and what we call digital forensic investigators who actually do the hands-on with the electronics and collecting cyber evidence in support of those cases. I'm sorry, it is,
Page 12 of your track.
I'm sorry, page,
The vehicles that you have listed there, these are new vehicles for existing personnel.
That's correct. There are several individuals that are currently on the squad who are not funded in FY19 money, but it does include funding for the FY20, which in the governor's budget had bumped that up to 11 positions to add to the cyber center to make it a full staff operation.
So make sure I got that straight. So
Okay.
in the full budget the 2020 full budget, there are how many positions associated with the vehicles?
Actually, 10.
10.
10 positions. One is a non-vehicle position.
All right. And these are this will be the one-time cost. Now, why are we moving this? Sometimes we've done this in the past where we'll have vehicles placed into the bonding request as opposed to putting it into the amended budget.
So the question is, why is it here?
Why are we
as
not
opposed-
bonding the vehicles?
Well, this was actually an additional ask that would have been workflow money, isn't that right, Connie? From the standpoint of fully funding what they were not able to fund last year.
Okay. All right. Questions from? I have other questions, but I want to let the committee ask questions. If you have any questions, you can see the items on page 12 there under section 30. So, and you'll notice that we have the attached agencies. So you're really looking at section 30.1, 30.2, 30.3, and 30.4. But you'll see that each one of those have a statewide application, and those generally are, of course, applied statewide. So the only item there that you'll see is 30.4.2, and that's the real request here. Floor Leader Rogers.
Mr. Dutton, Scott, congratulations on the promotion, interim director.
Thank you, sir.
Just a real quick question. We're dealing just with the amended 2019. You have nothing. It's my understanding that the governor's going to be asking for about $500,000 for the gang-related thing. That's all 2020, right? We're not going to do anything at all in 2019 with that?
That's correct. It's in the FY20.
Okay, I just wanted to make certain. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. One thing this committee's put a lot of money into, and as we're wrapping up last year, we didn't have any data that we may not have now on the rape kits. Do we have any kind of sense of success or where we are on that?
Actually, Bill, I can, Chairman Murphy,
Okay.
I'm happy to provide you, I was provided a comprehensive report on that, because the GBI not only got. I'm sorry. Okay, but I was provided a comprehensive report on the rape kits. I know the GBI not only got some state funds, but they also got some grant funds.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be more than happy to provide that to you. Yes.
Unless they are being rationed, I'd like to get copies of that.
I would love to send one to you, I. Williams. My best and favorite. And anybody else, I'll send it to the entire committee.
If you wouldn't mind, though, Director, if you have some just cursory information to provide, that would be good.
Actually, I don't on hand, but we'll be glad to provide that document that was provided to, I think, the House and the Senate as well.
My understanding is that backlog has been.
That's accurate. The final numbers, I'm not off the top of my head. I don't know, but that program was completed successfully, on track, and we're right where we need to be with those.
And Director, it's true that the staffing that we allocated and the amount of resources that GBI has applied to that program just to deal with the backlog, which was enormous. As a result, you also have the continuation of new rape kits that are being discovered, more recent ones that need to be tested and then returned back for prosecution where appropriate. And so you're still requiring those staff members to facilitate the current load of rape kits that are being deposited in GBI. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And formally, there was no legal mandate that those rape kits be deposited with GBI, so you didn't have that workload to begin with.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then, in addition, my understanding that as a result of those rape kits that have been provided and that you've tested and submit back, there have been at least, I know at last check I saw, over 30 hits, if you will, that where the DNA information was detected in with someone who has been convicted of a crime and whose DNA is retained by the, I forget the name of the system. CODIS system. Mm-hmm. And so, the last time I saw it was 36 or 39 hits, and then those have been referred back for a local prosecution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's kind of what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, those are. I mean, this is really important. I mean, this was a singular, important, huge bipartisan support on this measure, and it cannot be underscored. The yeoman's work in 2 years to have gone through, what was it, 4,000?
Yeah, it's actually just a bit over 4,000 kits that were actually tested.
So over 4,000 kits tested. This committee, in terms of appropriation, helped to give resources for that testing, so they had the labs um, the laboratory scientists able to do that work. This was a huge initiative, bipartisan initiative, and it's very good to hear that it's been successful. The prosecutions are the next item on that, and it's important that we see individuals prosecuted as a result.
To provide a little bit of clarity, if I may, Chairman, from the standpoint of ongoing investigations associated with the 4,000 tests that were done is in the neighborhood of about 1,000. So it did produce additional information that would lead to hopefully prosecution on these individuals.
1,000, you said?
1,000 that require additional investigation.
Very good. Very good. Well, good job, committee members. And yeah, it's a good job. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Questions around the ball? I got one from, is it, Al, you have yours? Chairman from Liberty County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I wanted to congratulate you, Scott. Look forward to working
I appreciate that
with
very
you. You've got some mighty big shoes to fill. I affectionately
And
called
hat.
him.
And hat.
Not yet now. I got a few squeaks left in them. You got to get them broken in, but I know you will be able to. But I affectionately called him Dick Tracy. Now, it's been great to watch the professionalism rise in the GBI over the years. I've been around long enough, not in legislature, but to remember way before you were GBI, when that was the dumping ground, when it's political patronage, when there was nobody else that wanted you. They'd put you in the GBI. But you've turned around and have become one of the most respected investigative agencies in this country. And I don't know if you're as good as they say you are, but Ms. Miles convinces us that you are. So, but thank you, and we look forward to the work going ahead. And good job on the rape kits. That was so very important, as the chairman has said.
Well, I appreciate that, and for the agency itself, from the standpoint of the professionalism that the agency's grown through, that goes back to the people who sat here before me. Director Keenan was a big piece of pushing the agency into professional organization, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my congratulations as well, Scott. I don't think
Thank you, sir.
the new position should not warrant a booting of your vehicle during committee hearings going
I
forward.
wouldn't guarantee that.
But I think didn't we hire some new scientists specifically to target these sexual assault kits, and there's some training that needed to go along with that. Are all the new scientists or the new agents that were brought on board specifically to target this? Are they fully
Some.
trained? And
It's in an interim. Dan can maybe help answer that for me a little bit. So from the standpoint of the training process for that is extensive for the peer review aspect of it, but through state funds and grant funds, we did pick up additional people to tackle that particular issue.
okay.
All right. And Chairman Lunson.
Again, congratulations on your interim appointment.
Thank you, sir.
We appropriated some funds, I believe, to add some additional manpower to GBI, particularly for the opioid task force. Can you give us an overview of what the results have been for that dollars spent?
Sure, absolutely. So we were able to hire 11 agents to backfill, actually to supplement our drug enforcement efforts throughout the state. So they just graduated the GBI Academy in December. They're now in their assignments starting to work. So probably within the next 6 months, I'll have a better sense of where they are with their cases. But from a metropolitan perspective, many of the task forces that we have operating that are paying attention to the opioid crisis, it's on a regular basis that they are responding to cases of deaths that are related to opioid overdoses, and they are working these cases not necessarily from the traditional sense of a drug violator, drug distributor, but an individual who has supplied the deadly mixture to the individual. So we've been very successful in those as well.
Is this strictly from an enforcement standpoint, or do you have within your structure something to in preventative measures included in that?
So as part of the initiative on the enforcement aspect, we do partner with Georgia Department of Public Health and the federal government as it relates to treatment programs. That's another facet of the program. Ours, specific the GBI piece, is the collection of data so that public health can make a better determination of treatment plans. The other side of that, from a law enforcement perspective, is determine where the outbreaks are occurring, and that's where you target your resources to work those cases.
Is there any part of yours that is targeted toward our younger folks, preventing them? I've been to several opioid conferences in recent months, and one of the things that they really focus on is you have two different aspects of it, those that are already addicted and those that we are trying to prevent from going down that path. And I'm just curious to know what, from your perspective, is there anything there that
yeah,
you're doing?
Absolutely. There are. So from it's everything from our agents who are working these cases to the crime lab scientists who work these investigations on that side. They are part of discussion panels. They do outreach as part of the group, the working group, as it associates with the opioid crisis. So yes, there is that public face to it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir, and congratulations on your appointment. As a pilot at the airports, a major airline, I'm just curious what y'all are doing, GBI, with the human trafficking situation. And secondarily, Governor Kemp has talked about this, the gangs violence, and he wants to add some more money for that. Can you talk to me just a little bit about that? Thank
Sure.
you.
So from the standpoint of sex trafficking, or specifically for us, child sex trafficking, we do have a very large enforcement aspect associated with that. We're in the neighborhood of, and I'll tell you from the standpoint of the number of tips and leads that come in from child pornography to sexual exploitation of children to commercial sex trafficking, those tips and leads have increased to about 5,000, where 2 years ago that was in the neighborhood of about 1,500 tips per year. Each one of those has to be looked at, evaluated for further investigation. We do have a very robust ICAC task force, which involves a lot of jurisdictions in the state of Georgia. We lead that. There's about 230 agencies associated with that, all working in the same direction to combat that. Any kind of major events, special events that are coming up, we have operations going on with those as well. We partner very closely with ICE and FBI as it relates to those cases, and many of those cases we'll do them on our own. Incidentally, and this kind of transitions into an all crimes approach, and you mentioned the airport. We've made a conscious decision to have a GBI presence at the airport. We have a supervisor, 2 agents working with FBI at the airport with the purpose of sex trafficking, gun smuggling, money smuggling, anything from that perspective. They've had very good results. They've been in operation probably for about 2 months. That's also a program that's being watched very closely at the airport as well. As far as the gang initiative goes, in fact, I met with the governor's staff last week, Friday of last week, to talk about the strategies moving forward. The $500,000 that they've awarded us is for the purpose of a prosecutor liaison to include a couple of senior investigators to focus on the gang priorities. We're currently working on GBI points or strategies to combat these, which we've done these type things in the past with undercover operations, wiretaps, anything that we need to do to pull all this stuff together. So that's still in the formation, but I hope to have a little bit more detail about that in the next weeks.
We do have a schedule we want to stay on. Appreciate the question. Mr. Bruce, you got a question?
Quick one. I've been getting calls lately about guns being made with these 3D printers. Is that an issue here?
It's not an issue that I'm familiar with on a large scale. I know it does happen. As far as the seizure of any of those associated with any kind of GBI cases, I'm not aware of any. I think that is an emerging trend from the standpoint of whether it's firearms or anything like that. So.
Is it possible that the reason that you're not getting the calls about it or confiscating them, they commit a crime with it, and they go back and make something else out of the same material? So it doesn't exist anymore.
I guess that's possible, but I mean the same could be said for any other firearm if you disposed of it from that standpoint. I think the scare with the synthetic materials for a weapon would be detection, but there's still detection items in those devices that could be through magnetometers and things of that nature.
All of my new members have reached their question quota. But you're good. Yeah.
You spent 20 minutes telling us to ask questions.
It only gives you 5 minutes to do
That's right. It's very, very narrow. What I wanted to Representative Williams raised a question. He just wanted to know quickly, and I think the regulation or if the criminality of creating those ceramic or plastic firearms is that I know of no state law that prohibits that, so that would be a federal law if it even exists, and I don't know if it does. And I don't need an answer right now. What we want you to do is circle back with the good Reverend Williams and ask and let him know, so he can. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, Ms. Nellie Miles, I wanted to say thank you. You have done an exceptional job of keeping all of us in the General Assembly aware of the goings on, if you will. Your staff has done a good job of keeping us. There have been a lot of officer involved shootings the past several years, and you've kept us abreast of that so that we could be knowledgeable and reach out to families and people in the communities when that happens. So thank you. And that's one part of your job. You have many more facets, and I wanted to express that gratitude to you for good communications back with the General Assembly. With no further questions, we appreciate the presentation, and we'll take the request under advisement.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda today is going to be from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. We have a former member of former chairman of our house, Jay Neal, is our executive director, and Stephen Hattenfield is the deputy director. And we are happy to have you both here today. Thank you for coming in to present. If you will, it's on the same page that we're on here in your track sheet. So if you'll look down just a little bit further on page 12, you'll follow where Mr. Neal will make his request. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's an honor always to come before a committee that I once served on, and I appreciate your due diligence in working the way through the appropriations process. We only have one request. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, especially for the benefit of the new members, I'd like to share a little bit about our agency and what we've done this past year before we get to that request. I'll keep it short because I know time is of.
Let's keep it short. We can go into more details when we get the big budget. But if you want.
Okay. Let me just say this then. Representative Bruce asked the question about the impact for local communities. While you all don't have that direct, just like we don't have direct in local communities, through organizations like CJCC and the way we collaborate with our partners, and we have many partners here today that you're hearing from the GBI that you've just heard from, and multiple other public safety partners as well. We have a lot of partners in the local communities. In 2018, we granted about 700 unique grants to close to 300 partners in the community, from sexual assault centers to domestic violence shelters to child advocacy centers. So the funds that flow through our agency reach every one of your all's districts, and we're certainly always happy to have any conversations with you about any of those partners within your districts that are impacted through our funds. We appreciate the opportunity that we have at CJCC to impact Georgians in all 159 counties, and I share with my staff on a regular basis. We're there to help those individuals in some of the darkest times of their lives. So while we're not able to directly be there with those victims, be there with those individuals through the partners in your in your districts, we're able to impact people in every corner of the state, and we appreciate that opportunity and the collaboration that we have with so many partners. I will save any other information about our agency for 2020 then, other than to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Ballinger for serving on our state advisory group, and we appreciate you working with us as we're through that state advisory group, making sure that we're meeting the requirements of the federal government for that Title II
Chairman
funding.
Ballinger probably works with you, and I seem to interfere with you. So, just ask Joe Hood. So.
We appreciate the role that you all play, however you view that role. We do only have one request, as you have said. It is $700,000, and it is for maintenance for the criminal justice e-filing project. I know that you had an opportunity, I think, last month to see a demonstration, Mr. Chairman, of the criminal justice e-filing project and the capacity of that project to be able to really make some significant impact in local communities, and all of our partners from the clerks, the judiciary, district attorneys, public defenders, jails, being able to have an exchange where that information can be shared efficiently and effectively, and we appreciate the opportunity to have shared that with you last month.
All right, now the criminal justice e-filing pilot initiative dealt with, what was it, 5 counties that participated in the initial offering?
5 counties, 5 pilot counties. We are,
and that's a sharing. I'm just going to try to summarize. Just that's going to be a sharing of criminal data as in terms of their court proceedings, so that that's readily accessible within and shared amongst those criminal systems, from the DA's office, public defenders, court system itself, even the sheriff's office.
That's correct. So you've got real-time sharing rather than files having to be taken from one office to another. We, in our data exchange board meeting today, one of our members is the clerk of court from Forsyth County, and he shared with us that he's reduced his staff from 35 to 26 over the last couple of years, and projects such as this criminal e-filing is one of the reasons he's been able to do that. So those local efficiencies that we're going to see, I think, are pretty significant.
Good. Thank you, Director. This, I think it might be helpful that we reschedule another time for them to visualize the system, and try to keep that presentation mindful of time, about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. But
Okay.
let's try to do another review of that, especially for our new members and those that may have missed it when we were doing this during special session.
We'd be happy to do
I
that.
think that'd be very helpful. Any questions for CJCC? There has been a question about the other counties that you may be looking at in terms of the pilot counties. Would you mind identifying those that are looking to join in?
Do we have those here today? I know we've sent out inquiries to 30 counties. Jim, do you have?
Jim, you want to step up to the podium, if you will?
I think we have 13 that have committed. Is that right?
That is correct. Definitely, Chair. Members. 1 second, please.
So we sent inquiries to 30 additional counties, looking for 20 of those 30 that are interested in being the next group. And at this point, we've heard back from 13 of them that are ready to move forward, and we're continuing to seek the additional 7. You have that?
I do. Would you like me to just read the 13 that have committed that were?
Please.
Okay. It's okay with the microphone?
Yeah.
Banks, in no particular order, Banks, Murray, Camden, Wayne, Troop, Clayton, Columbia, Newton, Harris, Whitfield, Walton, Chatham, Fannin. That's 13. So those are the ones that have committed, have signed on.
Great. Go ahead.
What are
Yes, sir.
the counties that you said you sent it out to additional,
I'm sorry,
additional
the
30,
numbers.
looking for
Yeah.
20, 13
And
accepted?
these had to do with looking for geographic coverage, looking for different size counties. opportunities to work in circuit-wide amongst a circuit of counties, as well as a mix of population sizes and caseloads. So the other 17, again, no particular, these might be alphabetical. Appling, Barrow, Bibb, Bullock, Carroll, Crawford, DeKalb, Doherty, Floyd, Gilmer, Glenn, Henry, Jackson, Jeff Davis, Lowndes, Muskogee, Peach, and Richmond. Did I say Liberty? And
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. So we'll try to schedule that with you.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next request, and we appreciate your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Director. Next
Thank you
on
very
our
much.
is the Board of Pardons and Paroles. We have the Executive Director, Chris Barnett, and then Lisa Reed is our Budget Director. And we're good to see you again, Chris. Ms. Reed, good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. If you'll direct us so we're all on the same page.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. Great to be here today. Honored to be before you and talk a little bit about the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. Our requests start on page 16 in your tracking sheets. Of course, we have several statewide changes. I'll focus my comments on the 3 agency-specific increases we have, and they are found in our Clemency Decisions Program budget. Beginning on line 35.2.2, you'll see a $341,315 increase to offset retirement and annual leave payouts for law enforcement officers. So far this year, the agency has paid out a little over $95,000 to annual leave and retirement costs. We have existing employee retirement system invoices for an additional $135,000. And we anticipate additional payments or invoices in the amount of $204,864 over the remaining of this year, for a total payout or agency cost of retirements this year of $435,858 during FY19. The recommended funds will offset the impact of retirements and allow the agency to retain its operational abilities through the end of this year. So we ask your favorable consideration on that request. And I believe the chairman's referring to line 35.2.4, and that's $15,510 for the vehicles. Through the retirements, we are looking to reallocate positions and the funding associated with those positions, moving from administrative positions to professional level post-certified criminal investigators. And so we anticipate, if everything goes well, of gaining 2 criminal investigators this year, and the $15,000 would provide the vehicles and operating cost of those 2 positions.
So you're shifting costs from those positions that you're shifting in order to pick up enough of vehicles to get $15,000 per vehicle. One vehicle, multiple vehicles, it's kind of
Actually, we've had luck doing lease vehicles. So it would be the lease on 2 vehicles, which is approximately $5,000 per vehicle for the year, and then the operating cost about $4,000 for the 2 individuals. And then the third request that we have, you'll find on line 35.2.3, and that is a request for $82,652 increase for military leave and salary expenses for 1 position. In 2018, we had a board member receive orders for extended active military service. In order to keep the constitutional number of board members, another individual was appointed to the board. So the agency has been covering the military leave as well as a 5-member board based on its original allocation. Therefore, these additional funds will provide the necessary funds to meet the agency expenditures when it comes to those personnel.
And again, that board position is a constitutional mandate.
Yes, yes, sir.
Normally, we don't add positions during the admitted budget. So that's why they think.
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions, committee members? Yes, we have
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You alluded to it, and I just want to make sure I heard right. I just hadn't. I'd like you to give me a reference for $15,510 for 2 vehicles, even on a lease. And what happened to the 10,000 miles, which y'all probably put on it in a couple of weeks? That's some deal.
It is a great deal, and that's why we've moved from purchasing vehicles to leasing vehicles, because the cost of the lease actually decreases each year. And we have found at the end of our lease, we have the option either to buy or go to a new vehicle based on the mileage or the use of it. And so we actually find that it is a better deal for the state and for the agency to go to a leased vehicle.
Hope it's a souped-up Yugo.
We got to get down to Liberty County one way or another.
What is the salary for a member of the parole board? Just curious, are you covering 2 salaries with that $82,000? Is that why you're having to do that?
No, sir. That $82,000, to the best of my understanding, would be the difference between the 2 salaries of the individuals on the board and 6 months of the one member's salary. So the salaries range, and I would hate to say, because they really do range depending on the experience and the appointment of the governor. And all of those are set by the governor's office. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Elaborate a little bit on that also.
I was going to say that the expected, the current information as we know it is that the individual that's on military leave is expected to return April 1st. So that is a portion of that $82,000, is that when he comes back from military leave, because he's been on military leave, we've expected to have a position for him. So it's the remainder of the year for that, plus the difference in the salaries of the 2 of them that we've paid out through the year, plus when he returns.
I think it may be also helpful explain the duties. If you just explain a little bit the duties and responsibilities that the board members are expected to do. It's quite substantial in terms of the review.
That is correct. The parole board members in the state of Georgia hold executive clemency authority in the state of Georgia. So all executive clemency, from parole, pardons, reprieves, up to including commuting a death sentence. Last year, we presented to the board a little more than 21,000 cases that the board reviewed and determined clemency action on. So it truly is a full-time job, 7 days a week of them looking and evaluating cases. And we've made great strides in that area and continue to. Be happy to get to you soon. Thank y'all very much.
Major Johnson got his notification of his random drug screening, so he is at the clinic doing that as we speak.
If anybody had any doubt whether leadership gets tested or not, amount of assistance we can come to these.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Happy New Year, y'all. The handout that you have has the corresponding line numbers from the tracking sheet, and I'll try to reference them as I go through. The department estimates annual leave payouts for ERS for fiscal year 2019 to be 38 sworn and 17 civilians, and we estimate that at just a little over $3.1 million. What is interesting about this is we have 124 of our employees that are eligible for retirement this year. We saw that bubble coming, and so very discreetly we had our HR folks do a poll to try to narrow down whose intention it is to actually retire. And so that's how we came up with those numbers. Spread across three different aspects of the agencies, line 39 1.2, 39 3.3, 39 4.4, 39 4.5, and 39 5.2, aviation or administration, field ops and Capitol Police, and MCCD. And that was all updated before we did our work with OPB in October. What I'd like to point you to is the next page, what gives you kind of a synopsis, not of our standard retirements, but what we also have as a challenge every year, and that's in our disability retirements. So you can look for our field operations, motor compliance, and Capitol Police. We had 42 folks last year that retired under disability. And the fact of the matter is, over the course of a career, people get injured, and that's the reason for those disability retirements. So the challenge that we face this year is not only those 55 normal retirements, but also on an annual basis, we have several retirements that occur because of disability. So it's just one of those things that we face. Moving on to the next page is a iteration of what we'll refer to as Phase 3 in our technology issue. The chairman is aware, and so is Courtney, what we faced over the last couple of years with Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 3 was to have the Georgia Technology Authority essentially consolidate all of our communications centers and take care of all that is required in technology for that. Well, we got an estimate of a little over $7.7 million a year times 6 years. And so there's an old law enforcement saying, hold up on that car wash. All right? And so we asked them to go back and sharpen their pencil, and they did. It came back at 3.7 plus some change per year for 6 years. That was the sharpened pencil, Mr. Al. And so we looked at that and said, no, I don't think that is money appropriately spent. We can operate under the same circumstances, update our servers ourselves, and maintain them with our existing personnel. So with that, our ask for that improvement across those 9 communication centers is $721,000. That's line item 39.3.2. The next page is our request and initial startup to increase our criminal interdiction unit. Currently, we have 25 members, and our initial ask was to double that. What these folks do is interdict the worst element of criminal activity that is on our roadways. These are the bad folks that are involved in human trafficking, that are involved in smuggling of drugs. They deal with the gang members as the pawns of the cartels moving drugs into our state. On an annual basis, they have an impact of over $50 million a year on organized crime. So between what we're facing with the heroin issue within our state and the gang issue, that's where this request originates from. So the criminal interdiction unit, we're asking for one-time funds to essentially start the supply effort in putting those folks on the road. In addition to that, we have a 50-man trooper school. We have a one-time ask there. That school is the 107th trooper school that we're actively recruiting for now. It starts in the beginning of May. We have 3 schools that are currently in. We graduate 2 small ones, one on the February 1st and the second on March the 15th. That'll produce about 35 troopers. And then the school that we just started 3 weeks ago, we're holding firm at about 41 folks out of 49 that started. So we look forward to hopefully a better attrition rate out of that school. Absolutely, sir. If you look at our recruiting effort, if y'all will remember, in 2015, we lost 116 troopers in 1 year. And then with the initiative of increasing the salary, we've gone from, just in our recruiting pool for a school, from about 800 to 900 applicants to as much as 1,800 applicants. So the response has been significant. So it's been a very, very positive thing. At that time, we had 863 troopers on the road before we lost 116. Right now, we're at about 836, and you add 35 to that, and it shows you that when we talk to you, it takes about 2 to 2.5 years to get back when you lose that because of your annual attrition plus what you have to train to get there. So we're about there, and it looks very positive, even with the anticipated attrition. With that other school that we just started, the 107th starting in May, and then the 108th starting in August, I think we'll finally be hopefully ahead of the curve. The last thing is the Office of Public Safety Support, the Governor's Office of Public Safety Support. This came about from House Bill 703. Y'all may have remembered that from last year. Essentially, it is an effort to provide a health and wellness opportunity to not only peace officers in the state, but firefighters, folks that are engaged in public safety across the board, from Department of Corrections personnel. And it's one of those things that's long overdue. This is modeled after the state of South Carolina and North Carolina. They've been engaged in peer support and this type of health and wellness effort. We first were exposed to it in 2005. And slowly but surely, we have been working towards this goal. Y'all remember the piece of legislation that came before you to first protect the language that occurred in peer support, and then moving into trying to actually establish an office within the structure in state law enforcement to support all of public safety. So this is just not state law enforcement. This is every PD officer, every firefighter. And with that, what this is an ask for the vehicles to support the clinical folks that will be hired to operate in that office across the state. And that's line item 39.6.1. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Thank you, Colonel. Just a couple of things. One is that the Office of Public Safety Officer Support, you'll remember that was Floor Leader, then Representative Joe Lott, now Floor Leader Joe Lott's bill that I think passed almost unanimously through the House and the Senate. And in that regard, I think that could you refresh me on the cost of the establishment of the office, not the vehicles?
Yes, sir. Initially, we used South Carolina's model, and we presented a fiscal impact of $1.1 million. What it did not include were the fringe. OPB did a very good job of doing a cost analysis, provided the fringe aspect in the vehicles. That's about a 1.6 initial investment for starting the office up and then keeping it forward. The person that will manage that will be an existing employee of the Department of Public Safety. His name is Captain Andy Carrier. We actually sent Andy through behavioral health school. He is a certified clinical technician with a master's out of the University of Georgia. He worked as an intern with the behavioral health group with Carl Vinson. So the person that runs this is a person that's educated in it, and he's actually known nationally for a lot of his work in suicide prevention. That is a big issue within our community. So that will be the supervision, and then we will be looking for folks that have a propensity to deal with public safety officials. One of the biggest problems that we have is our personnel do not talk to your average EAP person. And you can imagine that 27 or 28-year-old out of college doing that job might have a little hard time relating to somebody that sees critical incidences and horrible things, in the course of their career. So that's the whole purpose of this, is to provide a professional support aspect for the health and welfare.
How many positions in this office that are non-administrative?
9, sir.
Right, and then on the criminal interdiction unit, Colonel, you have $328,879 for that, for the cost of equipment. The question I have for you is this unit is it targeted in terms of its service area, or are these personnel that are identified in various different trooper stations or posts throughout the state?
Mr. Chairman, up until 2 years ago, the unit only had 14 to 15 folks. Predominantly, they worked the 85 and I-20 corridor and mostly in and around Metro Atlanta. It's one of the reasons why we increased them to 25 folks, to reach their folks further outside of Atlanta on most of the major corridors. And then with that additional, this will be a statewide approach. Particularly when you look at where the distribution, though, occurs within our state, there are several nodes, particularly gang activity. And so a lot of their effort will be in around Atlanta, but it'll also be in Savannah and Macon and Columbus. So those are the kind of the nodes of the activity, but by increasing that, we'll have a better, span across the whole state.
And these are specialized units, so a trooper may pull over a vehicle and then call for this as backup, or are these units patrolling specifically to interdict in these type of gangs?
These units are specifically for interdiction. Most of them are supported by our own canines. It's a very useful tool. They're specially trained in the issue. But if a normal trooper that's on the road needs backup, particularly in this area, they're there to assist.
Questions from members of the committee? I have Vice Chairman Bradley. I'm sorry, Chairman. I got Bradley on right now.
Mr. Chairman, I'm okay to defer to the chairman.
No, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. I had a question on the phase 3, the GTA outsourcing. So we're not going to go with GTA's proposal, correct?
Yeah, hold up on that car wash, sir. I don't think that spending that amount of money consistently on an annual basis for our effort versus the alternative of keeping it in-house and replacing our hardware, I just don't think that's good use of money. $42 million over the course of 6 years. And then if you back off with the relay going down to $21 million over 6 years, I just don't see that as something to even consider.
Absolutely. A wise decision. I think we had already funded $1.5 million for that transition. What is that money currently, if the transition's not going to happen, to do the outsourcing with GTA? How are y'all using the $1.5 million that was funded for that transition?
The initial funds were used to take over and manage our system. In other words, our email, our cloud storage, all of that was done in-house. So that's what that initial thing was done across 52 posts, 19 way stations, and 1,600 employees. This is specific to our comm centers. Our communications effort used to be in the post. Now it's centralized regionally into 9 comm centers that are essentially within each troop territory. And so it's a computer-aided dispatch system. And with that comes servers, server life, and so that's what this effort is specifically for, is to upgrade those comm centers with their servers.
And that's the $721,000.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Chairman Powell.
Thank you. Colonel, what's the difference in the interdiction unit and the SWAT team?
Mr. Chairman, they actually provide an additional role to the JTTF. A SWAT team member is a person that, if there is a barricaded gunman, if there's a request from a county for a felony warrant type service, if we've got an active shooter, any type of issue where we have to bring them in helicopters, they're specifically trained for that very high-end type issue. The criminal interdiction trooper is a person that's working the road, working traffic, specifically looking for the trafficking of drugs, human trafficking, but they also serve a dual role, and they're equipped to help in that Joint Terrorism Task Force role, that if an incident occurs, because of their location, they can be some of the first people that are on the scene before the SWAT team comes in and do their role. So they kind of have a joint purpose because of how they're trained and the equipment that they have.
Second question, follow up on that. All right, if we're funding 20, how many of these officers work together?
They don't work in a post fashion. They work as a team. And so when they're working a particular corridor, they're not just one person that's out there on the lone. If a stop is made, then they usually gravitate to that stop to back them up. We tend not to have use of force issues because of that model, because of that moving to where the stop is.
So how many of these would be in 20? Would this be multiple teams?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My next question is, given the problems that we have with the growth of gang violence in Georgia, are we asking for enough here?
I think it's a good start, sir.
Right answer.
Colonel, just real quickly, we were talking about the new trooper school that's coming up. You talked about an increase in the applications after the pay adjustment, which is well deserved and well overdue. But one of the things that you and I had a conversation about in the past was not just people applying for the thing, but the quality of people that are applying for the jobs. With these new 1,800 applicants, are you pretty well pleased with the quality that you're seeing?
The last school that we just started, out of 49 of them, 2/3 of them are veterans. One of the individual that sticks out was actually an elementary school special education teacher in the 4th and 5th grade. So we're attracting some very educated, very qualified people that have looked to this as something that they wanted to do and have now come to law enforcement. So yes, we're very happy in the quality of individuals that we're getting.
Great, thank you.
Particularly in this class, we have 4 females that are in this class, and that is a huge thing for us because it's very difficult for us to recruit females, and they're very, very good applicants, and we're happy that they're there. So
Great.
yes, we are.
Thank you, sir.
Under our table of organization, we have a certain allocated manpower number. How close are we to filling that? What is that number, and where are we in relation to total numbers?
That mythical number used to be 989. When the Department of Motor Vehicle Safety was formed, it was then reduced to 953. And so at our current strength, we're at 836.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Colonel, good to see you as always.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask back to the data outsourcing data management centers. I just want to be clear on this, and while we can certainly appreciate the savings, but I like to dig a little deeper. If you give me a great buy on a Bentley and it doesn't run, it wasn't a good buy. $721,531. At what point will you be able to grade the efficiency of a system that you're, in effect, refreshing aging equipment? Are we going to end up spending $721,000, then going back and seeing what we really have to spend? I've seen this happen, not with your agency before, but sometimes good deals are too good to be true, and sometimes they aren't.
This is specific to servers, Mr. Al, and so the average lifespan of a server today is about 5 years. What we're trying to do is not only buy servers, but also to go ahead and buy the extended warranties to get as much out of them as possible. The fact of the matter is, with ITs, there is a life expectancy. So you can expect 6 or 7 years from now, we'll be coming back looking for funds to replace those servers.
Those warranties, though, typically the warranties are for 1 to 2 year periods. So you're talking about extended warranty. You're talking about getting for expected lifetime.
That's correct, sir.
Which is 5 years. Is that
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of dovetail on Chairman Lumsden. You said the mythical or the number that's been out there in the past of positions filled is 986.
989 originally, and then when the Department of Motor Vehicle Safety was formed, we lost 36 sworn positions there, and it was down to 953. That's the number that has been used in the past as the benchmark, but honestly, that number has not meant anything to us in decades.
Okay. And currently we have 836, sir. Let me ask Colonel, what with our population growing as it is with different communities, folks moving somewhat into the metro and as well as out into surrounding counties in the metro, as well as North and South Georgia, how many, as the Colonel of GSB, how many troopers would you feel comfortable with, you believe we need out there across the state? What would that number be?
Representative Gravely, we are the third or fourth smallest highway patrol, state patrol in the country. As the population has grown, so has the licensed drivers. We all see the traffic that's out there. The national average of troopers in the country is 23 per 100,000 residents. If you do the math, that's 2,300 troopers if you were to meet the national average. Our strategic plan has asked for 1,000. And so in comparison to dealing with struggling around 750 to 760, and now at 836, if we had 1,000 troopers in this state, there's a country music song called High Cotton, Old Times There Are Not Forgotten. So yeah, you've got to look at what a realistic goal is. And so if you look at our strategic plan would be 1,000 troopers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To go back to the car wash a little bit, I have some of the same concerns that Representative Williams had. It just seems like a big difference. So is this 721,531 just hardware, or are there some human resources that are in no outsourcing and contracting
No,
of
sir. That's just hardware.
transferring the data or anything like
No,
that?
sir.
It's just the hardware, and you already have the staff to transfer the data over to the servers?
Yes,
and,
sir.
Okay.
Representative Williams.
Colonel,
Is this about a car wash?
no, I'm coming out the car wash. I found a couple of spots, but I'll take it. I want to ask you about your 1,000 figure and where we are in relation to national average. I'll be very honest with you. Living not too far off of 95 and driving 95 and up here on 1675, more so 75, 85. We spend a good bit of money, not nearly what we should, but we certainly try to market Georgia as a good place for tourism. I'd rather see 1,500 state patrols and less 150 population cities with cars out there stopping people, lining them up on the road, and they're leaving here saying, I'm never coming back to Georgia. I'd like to see professional troopers handling our traffic. I got cities near me down 95. You can steal the bank because everybody's on 95. No police protection and a whole lot of traffic control. Heart of city, 7 and 8 miles away, and you out on the highway stopping folk. And I mean, at the end of the day, they press the radar gun so much until it's calloused and they can't move the finger. We kill tourism with a lot of our so-called law enforcement on our interstates.
Mr. Al, as you know, we don't receive one dime of revenue. We're not generated to do enforcement by revenue. If you look at the audit that was conducted, 48% of the time, troopers issue warnings. And I think there's a sense of fairness there that when folks see that, that if they do get a ticket, I think most folks understand that it's well reserved. So you can see a model of that here in Atlanta. When you get out on the connector, what do you see? You see the troopers that are in the emergency lane. They're there specifically to keep the traffic moving. It's the open roads policy. What that does for the city of Atlanta is it frees up their officers to be on the city streets. So We've done that model here in Atlanta. We've also done it in Athens. We've assisted the city of Savannah several times when they've had, specific issues. So it can be a challenge, yes, sir.
A couple of final questions for you, Colonel. Going to the allocation of personnel relative to the national average, I think it would be helpful to know, when we're talking about national average, it would be helpful to know what those state jurisdictions have in terms of local law enforcement. Because what we're talking about ultimately is the amount of police presence that exists within the entire state. So that could be at a city level, it could be at a county level, it could be sheriffs, it could be patrols from troopers. So I think that would be a relevant inquiry that I think we'd want to follow up with on.
Mr. Chairman, not to disagree and to be respectful, but I think that the benchmark is what those folks do. Local police officers and sheriff's deputies, for the most part, are doing what? Answering calls. In other words, their job is not specific to traffic enforcement. The mindset that every patrol car that you see, particularly in a city or in a county, they're not engaged in traffic enforcement. There are some of those small towns that Mr. Al has pointed out that, work traffic a lot. But as far as what the specific job of the patrol is, it's not apples to apples when you just look at a number because of what our charge is by state law.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Is that I don't think we're talking apples to apples.
Yes, sir.
It needs a little bit more analysis than just a number.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and I know you didn't mean any disrespect to anyone
No, sir.
else. So the other thing is the 20 new positions that we're talking about, that 20 new positions, those would add to your officers and bring it up to 856, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So those would be new positions that you're hiring, and then also with respect to that, and going back to the trooper school question, how many of those your trooper school funded positions were filled at the last school that we had financed with the previous budget? Did we fill all of them, or did we lose some? And
Yes, sir.
accounted for?
We've provided an attrition for the last couple of years. If you look at the 105th Trooper School, our attrition rate for that school was 37.9 folks. We only started 29, and we'll get 18 out of that class. That's the class that's going to graduate on March the 15th. The class that's just previous to that, on February the 1st, we had a 59.5% attrition rate. We only got 17 folks out of 42. Yeah, the average attrition since the 102nd school through the 105th has been 42.755, just short of 43%. We have looked top to bottom. We're setting our goal now to have an attrition rate of no more than 25%. That's what our goal is. That's what we're going to be working towards. But from the last class that's going to come out, it's 18 folks out of 29 with a 37.9% attrition rate.
All right, thank you, Colonel. We really appreciate you being here. Very, very, very helpful for you both to be here. Amy, thank you so much for coming. With that, we'll move on to our next topic for the day.
Go Navy.
Did Mr. Vance come in? Ms. Yarborough, you're going to present. Come on up. Did you want to? Did you want to wait for Ken if he's here?
He's not going to make it.
He's not going to make
No,
it.
sir. And I was going to apologize for him.
Welcome, Ms. Yarborough, the budget manager for First. So we're happy to have you here. I'm sorry Ken couldn't make it to be with us today, but thank you for being here.
And thank you for letting me be here. And he did send his apologies. If you have not heard, he's getting ready for retirement, and that's what he's working on right now. So it is very important for him.
So for this purpose, we're going to be on page 19 of your track sheet under section 39. You'll see post is identified as 39.8.
Yes, sir. And this is a one-time request for funds to purchase equipment and scan documents for storage of our certification and disciplinary files. It is our responsibility, we're mandated to investigate and discipline officers in the state of Georgia that are accused of wrongdoing. And under Georgia Open Records Laws Act, it requires that we retain these records indefinitely. As of 2018, we had over 36,000 files, and within the next 2 or 3 years, we are projecting to run out of room. So what we were requesting these funds for is to scan, index, make everything that's paper electronic. And that's it.
Ms. Sharber, do you know why we want to keep these files indefinitely?
We're required to by law.
No, I know that.
Oh.
Do you know why that?
No.
It does. It does. When we're talking about these are all the disciplinary files, right? I mean.
Yes, sir.
So.
Only disciplinary.
That's something worth considering. I just having trouble understanding. I can understand, for the life of an officer, but at some point in time, the officer retired. So, Chairman Powers.
I understand I understand the need, but I'm trying to wrap my hands around that amount, $1,200,000.
Yes, sir, and all of that has been broke down, and I sent it to Ms. Courtney, and I can provide it to you as well. And it's one company, they're a sole source company, the only one that can do it. It's an approved vendor in the state of Georgia. So we will bring someone else in to do this, and then we will take it over. But, and they came out, saw our file room, what's involved in it, and that's the estimate. Well, actually, theirs was a little bit more, but that's, what we're going for.
Have we thought about, have y'all thought about buying the computer and the scanners and God, for that amount, we could hire a whole lot of 1099ers to go in there and feed this stuff in and scan it.
Yeah.
I believe Al Williams could start his own company less than that.
We really don't have the manpower, to be 100% honest, to be able to do that. We only have 27 people.
How many bids did you take?
There's only one sole source vendor. That's the one we have to use.
Why is that?
That's
where
what
where is that coming from?
DOAS.
And the reason why I bring it up, I'll just say, in the legal profession, we also have numerous different, very secure vendors that provide scanning services, shredding services for documents that are to be maintained for years. So it's very odd that we have one vendor to choose from, I think.
I agree.
To Chairman Powell's point. The other thing about this is, let me ask a question of how are you going to store them digitally? Do we have the capacity in terms of servers in order to store it electronically?
That this bid or this amount includes that.
No.
And I'm sorry.
No, they're following up. So it includes that amount. Now, are we retaining the servers, or are we storing them off-site with this vendor?
They will be with us. They will take all the files off-site, scan them on, get it ready, and bring it back into the office, and then they turn it over to us. Now, they will provide training, we got consultation, there'll be maintenance, but it will be in our office.
What happens to the documents after we finish scanning?
They will shred them.
Representative Gravel?
Could you repeat those numbers? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. Of the
How many case files?
Case files that we have.
In 2018, we had 36,543. And that came out to over 3 million pieces or pages of paper with all the files collectively. Mm-hmm.
All the files collectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so this vendor that's going to take the files, upload them electronically, then give them back to is that price based on the amount that they're going to be uploading? And the reason I ask is if we have deceased, these are complaints on law enforcement officers, correct?
Actual cases we've
Actual
investigated.
cases.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If an officer's deceased, would there be any need for us to continue holding that file? I mean, if that
something we definitely need to look at, because I don't see why we would need to hold it if they're deceased. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Williams, they done set him to go. Don't need to look at him no more.
What's that? $3 a page?
And that also includes electronic files, like we have, not electronic, but like DVDs, VHS files. They're going to upload those and make all that digital as well.
So do you have an idea of how many, like, terabytes of data we're talking about here with 3 million files?
I can get you that, but I don't have that.
And does some of this include, like, video footage from dash cams and things like this
Anything
as well?
that was submitted in the case file digitally.
This is going to
CD.
grow out of hand and become a huge, annual cost. Or like,
No, once they do this collectively, then we can start uploading it. They won't be doing it because we just got to get a handle on what we've already got there, and then we will go electronic from there on ourselves in-house.
Okay. But like going forward, you're going to have to buy more server space because, I mean, you're talking, I mean, off the top of my head, you're probably talking hundreds of terabytes of data that, you know, you're going to fill up servers pretty quick, even going forward if you're having to have video footage, graphics, not just the scans and the PDFs themselves that you generate, but
Yes, sir, you're absolutely right. It's going to grow, but either way, we're either going to grow out a room, and then I'm going to have to put them in archives, and, you know, that's another expense we're looking at, and then you have to retrieve them or go digital.
and some of this includes like server space, like buying the servers and then the outsourcing of the scanning and everything.
Yes, sir.
Hey, is there a way you could put this on a cloud like AWS or something, and it might be cheaper to have it hosted in a cloud?
I don't know if that was looked into. The Deputy Executive Director is the one that's heading up this project. I can certainly throw that out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
In my mind is a question that is, what are the oldest files in this? Do you have someone that can break down for us in general terms the number of files based upon their age? In other words, files that are 30 years or older, files that are 20 years or older, files that are 10 years or older. And what I'm thinking, ladies and gentlemen, is that if depending on the numbers of files there, if we were to consider changing the law and maybe postponing this decision, change the law, and change that policy so that it's more terminal in duration, if it's 20 years, what have you, then whatever number of files that are beyond that, they would no longer need to keep and preserve. That can be shredded as opposed to scanned.
Right.
And that can be disposed of. And that way, that may be offset to the state if necessary. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Right.
So I think that would be worth knowing and having that breakdown if that can be done.
Well, I'll definitely get with our IT people and our open records people and see what we can do.
You may have said this and I might have missed it, but if you have, they're going to take all this paper or whatever and turn it into digital. And how are they going to give it to you? When you say digital, I mean they're giving you a disk?
Oh, no, they're going to bring servers. They're providing the server for this initial setup.
Okay.
And then they will bring all that, set it up in our office, and turn it over to us.
Okay, and then once they turn it over to you, you said they're going to shred the original
We will
documents.
shred the originals.
What happens if something goes wrong with that thing that they give you?
I think we have a backup system that's supposed to be involved with it. I don't know. I can't answer that one. I'd have to get back with you.
Because that would be my question is, now do we have another cost associated with backing up this information that you already say you don't need?
It's a good question. I can find out. Yes, it would.
So you'd back up the backup.
Right.
You'd have a security measure
Right.
in place so that if something were to happen to the main server, it'd immediately be able to be restored to the original form.
And I'm assuming, but I can definitely find out for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These files, where are they stored?
Right now, they're in our office in the open records room.
Okay.
How many stories have you got?
Actually, just one, but we have the rollout density shelves, and they're full.
All right, other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, I thank you, Mr. Allen, for being here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You wouldn't mind follow up with the
Definitely.
answers to those questions, and you provide that to Courtney, and Courtney will distribute to the committee.
I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, last on our agenda today is Georgia Public Safety Training Center. Chris Wigington is the director. We have Ms. Cindy Jones joining him. Thank you, Cindy. It's good to see you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for the exceptional training that the GIPSTIC provides to law enforcement, both at the state level and then across the state locally. Thank you for your service, and if you could just go ahead and present your amended budget request. believe we're on the same page we had been on today, so we're still on 19, we're just at the next line down at 39.9.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. We've got two requests. One is across the board, the insurance adjustment, like every other agency, and the other is a total for $307,478 for fixtures. Last year, you were gracious enough to approve 3 bond purchases. In those bond amounts, these were equipments, desk, boards, computers, target systems for ranges, all the things to make the bond projects work. They took out of the bond. So this money is backfilling desk, computer screens, computers, target systems for the ranges. So we'll, with the bond project currently under construction, we'll have the shell, but not stuff to make it functional. This will complete the project and make the stuff functional.
Mr. Director and Ms. Jones, part of the reason why we see this happening and transitioning out of the state, we're doing a lot of things bonded during the recession, post-recession period. But given that a lot of the furniture and these smaller personal items that are associated with capital improvement having rapid depreciation values. You look at technology, depreciates within 5 years of working. So a lot of these items have that rapid depreciation. So if you bond it, you're actually paying interest. So if it's depreciating rapidly, so it doesn't make sense to do that financially. If you can avoid the issues, you gotta have the cash to pay for it. So what we've now seen is a lot of these personal items start moving into the budget, paying cash, because it's actually a better expenditure of money because you're not paying interest on it. So I just wanted to explain that to the committee, what committee members who are still here. And so that we. Okay, all right. Yeah, so. So that's, just wanted to make sure that we explained that to you, that's why you see stuff happening. And that's why some of those items we cut from the bond budget. Am I mistaken in what I'm saying there?
No, sir, you're correct.
Any questions for Mr. Williams and Mr. Jones? Okay, well, seeing none this time, what I did want to ask for is this payment here will take care of those facilities that I'm sorry, making functional those facilities that we bonded last year.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right, well, good. Well, I appreciate your time and thank you for the training services you provide across the state, running Forsyth. Those are the 2 facilities, right?
Well, 6, let's see. Athens, Rome, Columbus, Tifton, Savannah, and then Forsyth. Yeah, we're spread out.
Did you just drive Birmingham to be here?
I did, yes, sir.
I think the colonel was taking in a radio reception, but you might have been pulled over.
That is not correct.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.